Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and this is part 3 of the 2018 end of the year Steam follow list cleanup. What's going on is throughout December, now done, I cleaned up and did some major work on making my wish list be the place where games that are good exist, and only games that are at least of a certain level of quality exist, which made a lot of games leave the wish list, and it put all new games in the follow list. Now it's been about a month, and the Steam 2018 winter sale is happening, so I really needed to clean up the follow list and see, have there been any games in the meantime between that wishlist cleanup and now that deserve to either be removed from the follow list because now there's enough reviews on them that tells me that they're not as good as I thought they might be, or do they deserve to be promoted to the wishlist. This is the third part, so we're starting with Shadowverse. With any luck, we can power through this and finish all the way to the end today. And unlike the wishlist cleanup where I wasn't having to make a decision particularly for every single game, we are now at the point where I am going to have to make decisions for the most part. So we're going to start with Shadowverse CCG, collectible card game. I stream Hearthstone every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday while I talk about the news that's happened and look at every single game that comes out on Steam. That's the point in which, if a game does happen to come out on Steam, and very few of them actually are good enough to even have this happen, I'll put it on the follow list if it looks like it's good. Pretty much solely. Like, I don't think there's too many games that are like totally amazing when they first launch that I want to put them on the wish list without putting them on the follow list, because I want to see people's reviews. I'm more about trusting a real person's reviews, these verified purchasers here on Steam, than I am any other source of information on the game, which is mostly just hype otherwise. So as for Hearthstone and collectible card games, the reason why I play Hearthstone is because it's slow. It's just that simple. It gives me a lot of time to play the game, and people do like Hearthstone, although the fandom is slowly fading away from that. But also there really hasn't been a good option to replace Hearthstone. Shadowverse looked like it was going to potentially be one of them. It gets into more of the anime art style, which may scare off as many people as it intrigues. There's certainly a lot of mobile games and Korean games that have this art style, Asian games that have this art style, but I don't think Shadowverse is going to ever succeed. You can see in the last 30 days it's 54% positive, whereas when it first launched, or overall it's in its lifetime, it's mostly positive at 74%. So in the last 30 days there's been a significant drop off of interest in this game for a free-to-play game. The censored content follow group that I follow says that some censoring is going on. I'm sure people aren't happy with that. It has in-app purchases, which is one of the things I'm trying to keep an eye out to. I also remember Shadowverse paid some Hearthstone streamers and other Twitch streamers and YouTube streamers to promote this game, and it didn't really come out from that. The only games that really could beat Hearthstone are if Artifact had succeeded and it was really good, or if Magic the Gathering Arena comes out of beta and it turns out to be really, really good, or if Bandai Namco made a really good Yu-Gi-Oh game, or I guess if there was a Pokemon card game that came to PC, that might work too. Until then, I'm pretty much stuck with Hearthstone. But in this case, I'm following this game specifically because I'm following this game just to see what happens, which is a rarity on the follow list. So we're starting off with the wrong response. Let's just move over to the next tabs. Apologies for the flashing light. That's the page reloading. So what I pre-filtered what we're going to look at to make sure it met my limitation. I don't see a reason to judge games that are below 20 user reviews. So there's still some games that are below 20 user reviews that happen to come out in 2018 that I'm giving more of a chance to be potentially a sleeper hit. 2018 for video games was very busy, not particularly, in my opinion, a good year for video games. There was just a lot of them, and so I could see people finding some sleeper hits and coming back to them and saying, hey, actually this game is good, or this game is updated from a year ago and now it is good. This game, Spartan Fist, is barely over it. It's marked mostly positive. Now, my fear with this game when I first saw it is it was just going to be it's a little blocky, and any game that's blocky is always questionable as a low effort game. And it looked like it's just going to be an arena fighter, but it says it's a roguelike. Says it's single player only, so I guess I can take from this that it is good enough. And I guess this one deserves to be on the wish list. Now, getting on the wish list doesn't mean it immediately is going to get purchased. It just means it's going to be in consideration with a couple thousand other games that are on the wish list. And a game like this, I may not actually ever decide to purchase, and I plan on at the end of 2020 to go back and clean up the wish list again, and at that point I may consider games like this, if I haven't purchased them, as just not having any relevancy, particularly if it's a game that nobody played and it's been a couple of years and there's really nothing else to see or say about it. If we get really questionable about it, we'll come down and look at the reviews. We might check the player base using the Steam Charts plugin or the average playtime using Steam Spy. But I'm not being that methodical about looking at games in the follow list. Instead, I'm just trying to make a secondary judgment based on my memories of my first judgment. So let's move to the next one, and that's my suspending plugin that saves RAM. Next we have Speed Brawl, which is 88% positive of 26 user reviews. The thing about games like this, and I would call these Gianna Sisters style games, is they seem to be only focused about running around usually, although in this case it's not just a race. It's you get in areas and you have to beat bosses and enemies to move to the next area. It only has local multiplayer, and I didn't think when I first looked at this that it had as many positive reviews as it does now, so maybe they've improved upon it. Looking at the video, it seems like this probably is something I could play, whereas I feel like when I first looked at this game, it was not presenting something that I felt like I could play. It felt like it was going to be very, very fast paced. It's possible when I first looked at this game there were some negative reviews, more negative reviews than positive ones. But at this point I can't just look at the negative reviews and be hypercritical. I think I'm going to put this on the wish list too. In fact, I think most of the games on the follow list will make it to the wish list, because a certain level of quality control has already gone into this. The only way something would have even made it to the follow list is if it came out rather quickly and rather recently and didn't have any reviews. So I imagine, for instance, Star Control Origins didn't have any reviews when I looked at it, because I probably looked at this on September 20th, 2018, the day it came out. That's usually how it works. Within a couple of days, I'll look at a new game, and we can see that this game is at best 69% positive. It's also a space game, which are just not my type of games to play. It actually looks rather pretty. Unfortunately, I think there's also some news around this, and usually when there's news around a game, it's not a good thing, where I can't tell you accurately. I think there was some dispute on who owns the trademark or registered mark, as it's mentioned here, of Star Control, and Stardock Entertainment was involved in a lawsuit, whether they were the suee or the suer, with another company, which that certainly might be the issue. But whatever it is, people wouldn't just negatively review bomb a thing over a lawsuit, because we wouldn't know who was in the right there. But it seems like this is people that liked previous Star Control games and felt the new one is not good. Here you have a positive review. This is a bad game. This is the first sentence on a positive review. Talk about weird. So this game can be removed from the follow list for a couple reasons. One, nobody likes it, and it really doesn't have any credibility. I don't want to 100% avoid bad games, but I want to mostly avoid bad games. That's just kind of how it goes. Apparently, I already own Star Trek Adversaries because it's free to play. On rare occasions, I'll put things in the follow list because these free to play games don't get labeled anywhere. Steam's launcher has a library section where it's supposed to list all the games you own. But if you install a free-to-play game and then uninstall that free-to-play game, it's removed from your library, which is nice, I suppose, but that feels like that should be a filter, and it doesn't seem like it is. If there is actually a way to make it so you can see all the games you've installed that are free-to-play, I'd love to know in the comments below. That being said, unless I'm going to go into a heavy dive of covering all of the Star Trek games, I don't think I would cover this game a second time. I actually did make a video when this first came out, or around when this first came out, and it's another card game, and it's not very good in its beta that I was playing it, and seems like it has not improved any since then. They really messed up, in my opinion, how a card game or a collectible card game should have worked in the Star Trek universes, because you have like room on your field for 3, maybe 4 spaceships. You have very memorable cards, like there will be one card that is Data, there is one card that is Picard. That is ridiculous. There should be like 100 ensign cards, there should be 100 lieutenant cards, there should be 100 captain cards, there should be mentions of characters from as far as you can reach into the extended universe and the fanfic universe of Star Trek. There should be a many different Picard cards. There should be many different even Wesley Crusher cards, like, and each of those cards should do something different, and there should be a lot more things, and each of those cards should be able to be played on the field like a minion, not as a assist card for what is a limited group of boring space shuttles and starships. So yeah, just bad design in general. So I don't see a reason to, well, continue to follow this, except for it won't let me unfollow it. Well, whatever, moving on. Let's see. Next we have Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2, and this is on my follow list, not because I don't own it, but because let's reload this actually. Yeah, they decided to log me out. Alright, great. Let's see. Well, why would the page decide to log me out immediately? Like, I logged in less than 5 minutes ago, and it decided that wasn't good enough. Alright, well, let's just do it live. Go over here, so you can't see my login information. Sign in again. Look up the authenticator code. This is completely Steam's fault. Like, I specifically just logged in. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, I think the reason why I wanted this is either because I was going to get the complete collection, but no, that wouldn't be a reason. There was some DLC that was never released in Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, which isn't a good game anyways. But I've already covered it, so there's really no reason for that to be on my follow list. While we're at it, let's go back here and remove this from the follow list too. And move forward. Yep. It's a shame the Force Unleashed did not succeed. The first game, in my opinion, was actually rather good. The second game was rushed out and terrible. If the Force Unleashed had succeeded, I would hope and kind of think it might have gone this way, where there was a consistent, good, easily accessible Star Wars game that came out every couple of years in a certain genre. Unfortunately, it went to Battlefront, which is kind of easy to access first-person shooter with just Star Wars skins, but no, I really don't want to play a Battlefront game. I would want a little bit more story in Star Wars, frankly. And it's not like I'm even a huge Star Wars fanboy. I kind of don't like any of it. But the only other things you have are some really, really old Star Wars games that are really good, but they're so old, and the occasional random game from random company that's good. The Lego Star Wars games are probably the best Star Wars games in my opinion. But then also you have like the flying simulator Star Wars games that kind of started it all, and those are not easily accessible for most gamers. Moving on, we have Stormy and Taillight, a slow-paced puzzle adventure. This is probably one of those niche point-and-click adventure games. I'm a sucker for point-and-click adventure games. It's not likely that this game would get very many more reviews. So even if this was below 20, I need to make a decision. It's discounted right now during the sale for $1.19. And of course, the reason why I needed to do this and get all these games on the wish list is because I asked people to support my channel by gifting me games off my wish list. So I want to make sure there's nothing on there that is just awkwardly horrible. Because then I would have to play an awkwardly horrible game and criticize it very brutally, and nobody wants that. Like, nobody wants to give somebody a gift and then potentially hear how they didn't like it. Of course, at a certain level, I am a video game critic, so I'm going to criticize almost any game I play. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It's just that's what I'm looking for. I'm going into it trying to improve people's tastes in games, point out things that could have been improved by the game creators, if the game creators ever do happen to watch any of my footage, which they have in the past, certainly. Next we have Street Rats, which looks like it's a racing game. Is this a little bit like Trials, racing and fighting? I'm not really sure about this one because it looks kind of cool in how it's being implemented right now, but I also kind of wonder how easy to control this is, or is this is an average person trying to play something like this going to constantly just crash into walls? The idea of platforming while on bicycles or motorcycles is kind of ridiculous. I'm a little conflicted on this one. Yeah. I'm not certain. Maybe I guess I should put this on the wish list. It looks like it's good. It looks like people found it positive. 68 or 87% of 33 people found it positive. So yeah, I guess I'll bow to the mob here and put this on the wish list. You can kind of see that this came out to no avail earlier this year. I don't know if I'd really want to play Trials in particular, since this one looks, to take a side note, since this kind of looks like Trials, for the reason specifically, when you look at Trials, which is a bicycle BMX game where you have to do all these jumps perfectly, or you die and you have to reset it, like, it looks like it would be a lot of frustration. Here, maybe there's not so much of that. Maybe you can just miss a lot or muddle your way through it with a low amount of skill. And it is splitting the game up between riding motorcycles and fighting. So maybe I could be decently good at the fighting part and just somewhat good at the riding part. Although it almost approaches a Sonic level of a game too. It's like half of Sonic is running fast and half of Sonic is fighting enemies. Let's move forward though. We don't need to get into long conversations on every game. Next we have Stitched, which is tagged an RPG Maker game, which I usually don't want to play those, but this so far has yet to look like an RPG Maker game. It's a horror game. There's a ton of horror games, and I'm cool with horror games. I'm not so cool with dark 3D asset flip horror games, the kinds of games where somebody is going to jump out and attack you at any point, and you're just wandering around a house that has been pre-purchased as a model through the Unity store, almost certainly. or you're wandering around the forest, or you're wandering around a creepy hospital. This, in the actual gameplay here, is what I'm worried about, because I think what they're doing is, this is either an extremely short area, looking at these levels, one labeled prison, one labeled red quarter. These might be extremely short areas where you walk around in an RPG Maker, and there is more of a focus on these images, but this is the real game. And see, this is what RPG Maker as middleware tried to sell itself on, is that if you have a game idea but you can't make a video game, let's use our software. Unfortunately, with RPG Maker comes a bunch of RPG Maker pre-built assets of tile sets and 3D models of characters, and everybody that tried to make a buck on Steam used them to the point where it is so cliche and so commonplace and so generic looking that no RPG Maker game looks good, just visually speaking. And this doesn't look good. And this is what you're going to have to look at the whole time. I've tried to play a couple RPG Maker games that sounded interesting and were even highly critically reviewed, and in the end, it was not a pleasant experience, just because you spend so much time looking at tiny little 8-bit pixel characters all over the place. Yeah, and I've pretty much sworn off RPG Maker games, and I think for Stitched is included in that, so I'm just going to remove it off the wish list. So, sorry, but there's even a couple of other RPG Maker based games that have more relevancy than this. I believe there's a game, I think it's called Angel of Darkness, or Angel of Death or something, that was made in RPG Maker and became a cult favorite, and then an anime was made based off of it because it had transversed into that secondary media of anime. That game has a lot more relevancy, and there's a lot more reason to play it. Also, this came out October 2017, so this has been a year. So yeah, that's getting removed. It really wouldn't hurt too much to be particularly critical on what gets to my wish list anyways. There's already lots of games that I already own and can cover, so I have a nice library. I'm probably never going to be painted into a corner where I have to play a game I'm not in the mood to play, just because it's the only game I have. And it gives me the opportunity to play like the first game in the series, then the second game in the series, and then the third game in the series easily in a lot of cases. So what's left on my wish list is just a lot of ins and outs, or things that don't have a lot of connections to other things. A lot of indie games that I would like to check out. And then there's a lot of games also on the wish list that are just always expensive because they never go on sale. But that's getting off topic, certainly. Super Dangerous Dungeons is what we're supposed to be looking at. It looks like it's a platformer. This may be a false perception on my part, but I feel like there are a ton of platformer games already on Steam, and I don't know if this one is offering anything better than anything else. It looks good though, so I guess I will put it on the wish list. But what this really boils down to is, would I want to play this, or do I want to play the Shanti series or Wonder Boy series? Like, because this has barely 23 people play it. They say it's 100% positive. I guess what I do, as I'm trying to make decisions here, is I put this on the wish list, but I keep in my mind, hey, if you're going to play a platformer, why don't you play the Shanti series, which has like 3 games in it? Why don't you play the Wonder Boy series, which is coming back? Why don't you play A Hat in Time, which is a 3D platformer? There's better known games out here. This would be the game to play on the list at like position 10 or lower. Like, this should be the first choice, but it should be a choice, so we'll leave it on the wish list. And who knows, at some point that might really be the a game that's on sale for like 49 cents. So at that price point, it might make a lot of sense to purchase it then. Next we have Super Inefficient Golf, which I'm not 100% sold that I want yet another of these wacky putt-putt games. This one is 73% positive with 26 user reviews. It does look slightly different than several others that I have seen like this. There was a whole series of people making putt-putt games with some kind of weird twists a few years back. You haven't seen too many these days though. I think this is a game that's good enough. The crowd has told me it's good enough to be on the wish list. Yeah, 99 cents, it makes kind of, that's a good deal. $4.99, not a good deal. A lot of these games just boil down to the price here, and it seems like what you're doing is you're exploding charges on the outside of a very large heavy golf ball or ball of some sort to get it to roll, which I guess then stops making it actually be about putt-putt at all. Okay, well then that made it to the wish list. Let's move on. Let's see. Here we have an early access game called Switchblade. This one shouldn't have been up for consideration because it's still early access, and I'm keeping early access games on the wish list. But the reason I put it up for consideration is because it's a multiplayer only game. I don't play multiplayer only games. So yeah, that is that. And for a multiplayer game, it might be good, it might not, but there's a problem here. This came out on August 28th, and it's early access, and it seems like it has very little player base. Yes, according to Steam charts, today's peak has been 6 people at the same time. There are 2 people playing right now. Its all-time peak has been 66 people playing at the same time, which just tells you that they don't have the advertising budget to get people to play a multiplayer game. In fact, most companies don't have the advertising budget to get people to play multiplayer only games. You have to be Valve, where you can throw that game in front of everybody's face, like Counter-Strike Go, or it has to somehow be a nichely super popular thing to begin with, which probably won't happen. Or you have to be like Activision Blizzard, where they can dump tons of money into Overwatch, and even at that, I'm not sure that Overwatch is growing at this point, other than it more than it's just kind of sustaining itself. Next we have Swords and Soldiers, Sharwarmageddon. Let's see, is this a single player game? Yes. It's tagged as a real-time strategy multiplayer 2D game. You can go to different levels, and I'm not sure if this is a tower defense game of sorts. Yeah, it kind of feels like it's a sort of like a tower defense where you're sending out troops over and over again to defeat their line. Maybe it's not so much a tower defense than it is just a line of defense game. It doesn't look particularly interesting though. In fact, it just looks a lot rather busy. There's skill trees and overworld levels and coins and several kinds of rewards. It looks a little bit like a mobile phone game that's been ported. You have to click on the mouse to punch. That would be annoying. These look like different kinds of creep cards where you click on them to summon more minions. They probably are all on a cooldown. Yeah, just doesn't catch my eye, even though 85% of the people who play it like it. So I think this one is just going to boil down to this is just not the type of game for me. So yeah, I'm going to remove that one from the follow list. We're actually removing quite a lot. In the two previous videos, I really didn't... I was being a lot more generous. This is, I believe... Let's just go back, yeah. The previous game, Swords and Soldiers HD. The HD comes after the number 2. So it would have been better if this was renamed when they came out with a sequel, Swords and Soldiers 1 HD. But yeah, you can see here that it is more of a line defense game. It's not as busy in the first game as it is in the sequel. They just kept adding stuff, I guess. And this is rated very positively. It's not called a RTS, just a strategy game here. And it's tagged cartoony, which I don't know if that is a tag that's actually useful. But I think, again, this is just a series that I don't think really would intrigue me much. Yeah, instead of cards this time it's just buttons to click to summon creeps. So I'm gonna remove that one. Now usually I have to be a little bit careful that I'm not in just a slightly bad mood, because if I was in a bad mood then I could potentially remove games that I might change my mind on it. To be honest, because the Steam winter sale is happening, and during the winter sale they give you trading cards if you look in your discovery queue. The discovery queue for me, since I've seen basically most of the games on Steam already, tells me to look at games I've already looked at. So sometimes I do, on occasion, add something right back to the follow list after a couple of weeks because I changed my mind, and I'm trying my best to not go in circles. This game, Swords of Gargantua, apparently is very proud of its music, because that is all they are showing on this first video. It's an online action RPG. It's from an unnamed developer and an unnamed publisher. It requires VR. It's coming out in winter of 2018. Guess what? We're in winter of 2018 and it hasn't come out. Inherently, this game shouldn't be on the follow list for a few reasons. One, it's probably not that good. Two, it's not got a release date, and nothing should be on the follow list unless it has a release date. Anyways, and I'm not sure there really is a 3. The 2 is good enough. Even if this was out and reviewed well, it's a VR only game, so VR games stay in the follow list because I don't have a VR headset, nor do I think I'm ever going to get one. It is possible A lot of the VR games, though, will introduce non-VR modes, and I've seen them do it in different ways. Sometimes you get the VR version and you can play it without VR. Sometimes there's 2 different versions for sale if the company's greedy. Sometimes it's barely even mentioned that you don't need the VR. Next we have Symmetric, which is a spin puzzle game. Let's see. Why was this up for consideration? This was a spin puzzle game. It's simple. It's typically what I would describe as a single screen Unity game because the screen doesn't pan one way or the other, and it's almost certainly made with the Unity programming language. But there's only has 3 user reviews. It's 99 cents. It still has time. Like, this only came out in November. If this came out November 15th, 2017, I would make a decision. But even at that point, I probably would still add it to the wish list. So, I don't know why I decided that I must have just overlooked this. This should just stay on the fall list. Until it can get 20 user reviews, it's hard to say that this game has any real relevancy to the video game community. Like, nobody, according to Steam, has even played it. Even if it is a great game, which it probably isn't, let's just face it. This is at best a decent game, and that's it. And oddly, the fact that there's an anime girl here telling you a tutorial gives it less credibility as a game. That's probably just a pre-bought single animation screen. That for puzzle games you don't need to stylize it that way much. It should have just been a text box. Alright, well, this is gonna stay on the fall list, so we can just move forward. Next we have System Shock. System Shock is not out. Yeah, I know people are super hyped or somewhat hyped for System Shock. I think a lot of the shenanigans on the developer Night Dive Studios point should kind of de-hype people. At the end of the day, I think the System Shock remake is going to probably be a note-for-note copy of the original System Shock game with all of the flaws from a game that old still intact, which is, I think, kind of what people want too, or at least half of the audience wants. So I don't think the level design is going to be any different. I don't think anything other than the graphics will be different. I think the story will be the same. I think every badly written line of dialogue will be the same. I don't think there'll be any new type of enemies, any new type of gameplay mechanics. What they might do is, if this game comes out on time and makes some money, is they could then make a System Shock 2 that doesn't follow the System Shock 2 remake element. Like, I could see the reboot maybe changing the ending drastically, and surprise, the ending's different in this game and we're going in a different direction. But I think everything else probably is going to be the same. Regardless of all that, that's just a conversation on why I don't think people should be hyped about this. There's also a good chance. Like, I'm suspecting a lot of companies are going to go out of business in 2019. I would say Night Dive is a decent forerunner for one of the companies that goes out of business and does not finish this project at all. Regardless, I don't need games that don't have release dates on the fall list, even if they are hyped ones. There will definitely be many news stories and announcements of when System Shock Remake comes out. So yeah, they say they're rebooting and reimagining the original System Shock, but this is all based on Kickstarter and a lack of money in general, and it's iffy. It's iffy if this game comes out, and it's iffy if this game is going to be good. I have no particular love for System Shock. I didn't ever play it before. I have the original game, so I was going to probably spend about 30 minutes on them, but I don't think I was going to ever ever get any further than that. Like, I doubt I'd play all of System Shock 1, the original game. Next we have Taekwondo Grand Prix, which means we're into the T's. Now the T's may be extremely long if there's a bunch of games that start THE. So Taekwondo Grand Prix is 69% positive with 13 user reviews. Does this have any single player? Yes, it does. This one's not ready for consideration. Again, I must have been getting tired by the time I hit this point and not closed as many pages as I needed to. I want this game to be good, really. So far I have not found any other Taekwondo games on Steam or martial arts in the form of a sport. Usually what you see is you'll have something like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or something like that, where you're not limited to following any specific fighting style, or there's no consideration for protection, or there's no like sportsmanship in it. Like, it's a big difference between something like this and Mortal Kombat. I could see some parents, a few, saying, hey, yes, you can be in Taekwondo and you can play this game, but you can't play Mortal Kombat because that just is glorified gore and violence. Unfortunately, Steam's recommendation engine's not great, so Rocket League, Lethal League Blaze, Tekken 7, Nidhogg, Grid, which is a racing game, are getting recommended as games like this. Mount Your Friends in 3D, which is not a game like that at all, or Trials Fusion. So if I was to try to find some other Taekwondo game that had already been successfully released and played by lots of people, I don't really have a great way to do that. But I think there should be something like this out there. Unfortunately, we need more people to play it and give it reviews before I can move it to the wish list. Moving on. Next we have an early access game called Take That, which is early access. Another game that I would like to succeed, perhaps, but it very possibly won't. Like, this game needs to come out of early access. This game needs to turn into something that's playable. Is this first? It's single player only too, so it's not even multiplayer. Like, a run and gun Western style game makes sense. Although, you know, this is not a preferred art style, this low polygon design, and there really isn't a lot of environment here. So I am being exceedingly generous by even having this game on the fall list. This is dangerously close to a game that I would just describe as a low effort asset flip game. But I'm gonna leave it on the fall list until at least it gets 20 reviews and comes out of early access. Of course, there will be a point where a lot of games never come out of early access. Here we have a visual novel style game that's a little bit different because you're inputting keywords into this psychic anime girl and solve cases, is what it says. The solve cases part would be, I imagine, what the game is mostly around. Otherwise, you're just chatting. there's a small growing number of niche games, particularly out of the Asias, where you just hang out or just chat with a character, just trying to address some need and desire for extremely lonely people to have some companionship. This is very possibly a third of the game might be around that. This is the kind of game that's probably a cell phone port, noticing the black bars. But it doesn't look terrible. If it gets enough reviews, I'd be willing to check this out. It's not so much a real visual novel as you normally would expect. It might be translated pretty poorly. Oddly, it's English only too, so you would expect it to have a more of a have a Japanese or Korean or Chinese secondary language or primary language. Let's see what this developer's made otherwise. Seems like it's 3 games in the same category. Let's see. Ask questions, discuss hobbies, or simply input keywords. Input keywords, ask questions, or simply check to see how she's doing. The solve cases is the only thing here that would sell me on this game. Seems like also this is a developer that's kind of intent on releasing a game pretty frequently. Like, you had one in November 2017 and then a couple months later in January, and then it took them until October between then. That's not too bad or a count against them though. There's a lot of opportunity though for this to be a bad game, so user reviews will play a part, but I don't want to read 4 user reviews. I want to wait till it's at least 20, so it feels like it would be too easy to have 4 of your friends write positive reviews on your game, so that's why I have the 20 limit. Next we have Tanglewood, which is a pixel graphics action adventure game according to the tags. This is another one of those games that I think this game may have gotten a little bit of coverage too. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different game. I feel like there was a game called Tangled Deep also. So yeah, this looks like a game where you play as a fox. Looks good. It's rated 92% positive of 27 user reviews. I think that's good enough to put it on the wish list. Now, in all fairness, when I'm shopping and considering games, this art style stands out as looking like something from a Sega Genesis Disney game back when the Sega Genesis Master Drive first came out. So it would be hard to make a decision to buy this one, particularly at $13.49. It probably needs to come down to below $5 before I would even consider it, but that's a decision for a different day when I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is and buying games. Right now I'm just saying the games are good enough to be bought, running multiple layers of filtering to make sure we do a lot of good decision making when it actually comes down to spending money. Truth is, I'm very much a shopaholic, and I just subject myself, no, that's the wrong phrase, supplant myself perhaps. What I'm trying to say is I subdue the urge to spend money a lot of times by shopping and having lists of what I am going to buy And then, so you create a shopping list, and this is a good technique for anybody, is you create a shopping list and you see your budget, then you look at the shopping list again and say, all right, this shopping list is over budget. It's not all stuff I need to actually buy. Let's go through it again and filter it down. And you might do that 2 or 3 times, and then when you actually get to the point where there's a sale or an immediate need to buy something, the things on your shopping list, whether it's video games or anything really, you will be so certain that these are things you absolutely want and not things that you're getting tricked via whim into wanting. When you look at kids in toy stores, or just kids in general, they want things, young kids I'm talking about, they want things just because they see them. Like, they don't know what they do, they don't know what they're worth, they have no use for them, they just saw it, it's bright, it's new, it's shiny. You want to get away from that. You want to say, no, I've done the research, I've spent a lot of time, I've invested emotional energy, I've invested time into the decision of purchasing this. I am very, very certain. And it works for me pretty well to pre-shop and make lists and filter out games. It doesn't really slow me down from spending money so much as it slows me down from misspending money, because the games I get, I know are good quality, but the budget is probably the same every year anyways, because that's just a number that I picked out that I know I can afford. Getting away from that conversation though, because that was a bit of a rant, we have Tavern Guardian's Banquet. We need to hurry up if I want to finish this today. 80% positive match 3 game. It looks like it has quite a lot on here that's actually quite intriguing, but again, it's not reviewed high enough, and it still has time next year. When it is November 2019, I may have to make a decision on this, because it still may only have 10 people who've reviewed it, but right now I can just leave it on the follow list. Let's see, Team Sonic Racing. I guess I don't own this game. I just bought the Humble Bundle for a bunch of Sonic games, and I think I own almost every Sonic game now. I haven't played Sonic games except for like a few hours when I was a kid. So I was planning at some point to do a series of going through all the Sonic games. It would be pretty easy because most of them are bad, but or at least half of them are. I guess this stays on the follow list, or I could remove it. You know, either one is true. Like, it probably would be smarter for me to just remove this. People are going to talk about this game, and I'm going to see this game when it actually comes out, because I see every game that comes out on Steam using a bot on Twitter called What's on Steam. So I can just remove that because it's not out yet. And I really don't think I need a special placeholder for this. Next we have this game called Temporality, which is a short kind of, I think it plays music. Yeah, short reflective music game. You move forward and the music moves forward. It's about the Great War, or World War One. It's free. There's really no reason not to put it on the wish list. There's not a lot of reasons to play a free game. Maybe I could find like a reason to cover this game during Armistice Day or something like that, like one of the days when World War One or the Great War would be relevant. I'll leave this. I'll put it on the wish list. It really doesn't need to be on the follow list. Again, if you install a free game and then uninstall it, you lose it from your wish list though, so I'll have to be careful about that. Like, yeah, I don't even know if it's particularly in good taste though to play a World War video game, even if it is trying to be short and reflective, like making a special incident. Like, I always question holidays. Like, should I try to make a series that covers Christmas games? The answer to that is no. There's not any good Christmas games out there. Should I make a series that's built around Thanksgiving or United States Thanksgiving? I kind of do that, where I cover games that I got free or just want to check out but don't know I'm never going to play. Halloween is the only month that really makes sense because there's so many horror games. It makes a lot of sense to say all of the month of October I'm going to play horror games. But Valentine's Day, I one year played an adult game called Honey Pop around Valentine's Day, and I like that, but I don't know if YouTube's family-friendly new desire like that, so I'm not sure it's something I would get away with doing without being in trouble with YouTube some way or the other. Let's see. So here we have a game called Tetris Escape, which is lemmings with tetraminos. Let's see. Again, a game that I shouldn't have been in consideration for, so I wonder if maybe I just missed a bunch of games. So let's just look and see if these games should have been in consideration. Like, The Adventure of Mr. Fluffykins doesn't have 20 reviews, came out in 2018. I can't make a decision until it has 20 reviews. The Agency Chapter 1, it's not a finished game, and it doesn't have 20 reviews. I guess in this case it should be in consideration though, because this came out in 2016, so it's never going to have 20 reviews. It's a visual novel game with probably a Western animator trying to somewhat do a anime style, at least on one character. Let's see, the question I guess here would be Chapter 2, or how many chapters there would be. So we click here and see if there's a Chapter 3. We have Silver Creek Falls Chapter 2, which was 91% positive. The Agency Chapter 1. I don't see anything called The Agency Chapter 2. Interesting, it was released earlier. Why are these out of order? Like this. Agency Chapter 2 Deluxe is not reviewed positively. Agency Chapter 2 is not reviewed well. I'm seeing a significant amount of mixed reviewed games here. Yeah, this is really an unknown developer and self-publisher. I don't see this game as so amazingly looking in quality that it needs to be played. If I am going to cover visual novels, there's so many on Steam that this doesn't come anywhere close to being one worth playing. Now, ideally I would try to struggle and find some Western style visual novels, since most of them are from Japan, but that doesn't mean I should drop my level of quality down to this point. So this can be removed, which means the Agency Chapter 2 can be removed. And I guess that's probably what kept Chapter 1 on the follow list is that I was hoping that maybe Chapter 2 would be positively reviewed. I like the idea of a detective story, and there certainly aren't a lot of those on Steam or PC where you're just playing as a detective. Usually it's either a Sherlock Holmes game, or it's a game where you're a detective but also you're running around and shooting things quite a lot, which kind of makes it not there. Let's see. Next we have a Google VR game called The Art Thief by Jay Doherty, where you draw your own art and then you watch an interactive video where the art gets stolen. And I think that's pretty much all that happens. Google has been putting out these VR interactive narratives. It seems like for a couple of years. They're always free. They're cool and all, but they're not really games, and you still would need VR. Next we have the Blackout Club, which is early access, so it shouldn't be considered. You can see people are happy with it now, but honestly, even when this game came out, like, and I remember when it came out because that was only a couple months ago, it seems like it was being sold as not much of a real game. It feels like it is just a clone of Hello Neighbor made into like a 4-player game. You use your cell phone to collect evidence and use a flashlight, but also the parents are all like crazy, and you have to turn off your cell phone to hide from other people, hide from people chasing you. See, what we're seeing here is a lot more than what I had seen in initial shot. Like, I didn't see anything about the cult or cult symbol on the door. I haven't seen anything about a taser or a crossbow. So it seems like they're adding a lot more to this game than what it was originally released as. For me, the question will be, can I really play this in single player? Or is it just a practice mode that's boring in single player? Is there enough of a story and enough of a game here to play it in single player? Or is this one of those games where all the fun is made by your friends? Which, honestly, this probably would be really frustrating to play with a bunch of random people too, because they probably make all kinds of noise or abandon you really quickly. This game has changed quite a lot, so I guess you leave it on the follow list. Although there is, I guess, a slight question whether when the game comes out of early access, will it show up on my bot and be re-announced on what's on Steam on my Twitter bot. I think it would be. And I'll leave this for like a year, and then if at a certain point I'm gonna have to come back and look at early access gaming and say, yeah, this game has been in early access for a year and it still hasn't come out of early access. There's a lot of games that have been in early access for as long, if not longer, than early access has been a thing on Steam, and they never came out, and they're never gonna come out, and it was really just a shenanigans way of convincing people to pay money for an unfinished project. I'm a little surprised that Steam didn't make something that was very much just Kickstarter, but I guess that's kind of what early access is it's as much as Steam wanted to be like Kickstarter. Whereas Kickstarter, you can promise to deliver physical goods, which anybody promising to deliver anything physical on Kickstarter is going to lose all their money in shipping and handling, delivering that, so that's always a bad idea. And then there was Fig that came out specifically as a competitor to Kickstarter for video games only, and nobody really remembers Fig, and nor has it been an amazing success. And then there's Patreon, I suppose, in a certain level, where game developers can just get people to pay money to see the development of their game, which has worked for several game developers. And like GoFundMe also is pretty much the same as Kickstarter. This is another game that I don't know why it's on my wish list. That's the question. This needs to be removed from my wish list, which I have a plugin that lets me click that button to do that. Otherwise, by default on Steam, without that plugin, you would not be able to remove something from the wish list automatically like that. You would click on it and it would take you to your wish list, and you'd have to find it. Oh, I see. This is from the creators of Portal Stories Mel, which is a game I want to... It's a mod that I want to cover, but that doesn't inherently mean that I want to play this. I'll give this a year. Honestly, this could be a good game, but it very possibly could be a bad game too. Moving on, we have The Colonists. Is this early access? No. So you're little robots and you're building a new environment in a city builder. So there, I suppose, would be possibly a slightly different spin on the idea of having robots build a city versus, say, playing Ages of Empires. But I don't know how much of a difference that really is. It's still, this is still Warcraft to me. This is still Ages of Empires to me. It seems like you're just robots building it. It would. I don't see how this game really could gain relevancy. But it looks good enough, I suppose. People like it, so I could put it on the wish list and then probably never buy it. Games like this also are probably not the style of games I want to play. Anyways. But for consistency's sake, I'll put it on the follow list. Hopefully the UI is easier to read than City Skylines UI was, where all the text was too small. Although, in all honesty, this looks like it very much is too small for me to read. Moving forward, though, we have a horror game called The Corridor on Behalf of the Dead. Tag nudity and sexual content and gore. Interesting. Why did I put this on the list? This is either a troll low effort game, which it probably is, or this is a insane person making a game. Let's see, I'm looking into reviews. I'm just not sold on this. This feels very much like a troll game or a low effort game that is just pushing the boundaries for no reason. This is from a developer who hasn't made anything else. I don't know how this even snuck in on the follow list. Like, yeah, I'm willing for this game to simply be a lost gem. If this turned out to be an amazingly good game, people would just have to come back and tell me that it actually is amazingly good. I don't think it is. I think this is just a bunch of assets mixed together, trying to do something somewhat creepy, I don't know. That trailer got me. That trailer got me though. A sci-fi horror game set in the mind of a suspected killer. Survive fragmented dystopian memories and uncover the truth. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna be generous, but I don't know why I left this. Clearly I did a bad job cleaning up. Next we have a game tag nudity and mature, and this one is mixed at 66% positive for the game. Psychopathic horror adventure game from a horror movie based on the dynamic Sarah. The Dark Inside Me is a very unique psychological horror game based on the movie director A.K. Charisma's, based on the dynamic interactive scenario. 66%. Let's look at the reviews. Game episodes of Chapter 1. Next chapter will be the final release. So how much of this has been actually released? Like, he's all about trading cards and achievements right now. It'll be much longer than the first chapter. Yeah. When did this come out? June 6th, 2018, right? So this might be just an unfinished game. That might be the problem, because the imagery looks crazy, like really crazy, and good quality. Because of that craziness, that's what you're looking for, a horror game. 2 to 3 hours episode out of 6 planned so far. There's no early access tag, but the fact that it's an early access game. See, I just played through the game and I can't remember what it was about or anything about it. I think it was good. Cliche storyline, extra edginess, 2 rapes in 2 minutes, 1 post-mortem. Wow. Trailer gave me high hopes and it seemed to present a lot of interesting ideas, and I started playing it interested in not live up to my expectation. The integration and mechanics are clunky, the background music really gets in the way of trying to concentrate. Static back group looks great, the characters and NPCs look rubbery and somewhat stale. I cannot recommend this game as it's a generic storyline and mechanics are underwhelming. If there's a massive change in Chapter 2, then I'm not sure I can see myself playing this game past the initial chapter. Yep, this is another game that these horror games, they promise a lot sometimes and look like they might be amazing. This is probably a case where if the person who was making this game, I'm going to remove it from the following list if it turns out it's good. Somebody will have to tell me. If the person making that game had just been hired as an art director or a producer or an executive producer of the game, and he just threw out his ideas, and then there was a team that knew how to program games and make games good and playable in charge, that would have been good. Then you could have had a much better game. But when it's the same person that has to wear so many different hats, and when that person is good at maybe visuals but not storytelling, or good at making gameplay mechanics but not visuals or audio, You don't get a good quality product for a video game, which needs everything. And we've gone 3 horror games in a row. Apparently, The Darkest Woods. Again, not enough reviews for me to consider it, so why? I think I just missed things. Like, this is probably just a simplistic adventure, point and click adventure style horror game that I would be willing to play at a cheap price. 89 cents is not terrible, but I do want to wait. I want to not have anything on my wish list. And there is a sequel here. And when you have a series that gives some more relevancy, like if people like The Darkest Woods 2 and it gets 20 positive reviews, then of course I'll buy The Darkest Woods 1 and work our way through that, through the series. I would much prefer to play games that are a series than just play a bunch of random things, although I like to mix either way. Sometimes it is better to go that route and keep things unique. Let's see, next we have the Elder Scrolls Legends, which this is an odd video for the Elder Scrolls Legends, which is the Elder Scrolls card game that came out in 2017 and didn't really catch on. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? There's been a lot of attempts in the past couple of years to make collectible card games, and they've all kind of failed. And I only am following this because I'm actually following it. People who play it are pretty positive, but do you really want to get in bed with Bethesda? Even if you're coming out of being in bed with Activision Blizzard because you played Hearthstone, do you really want to deal with Bethesda right now with Fallout 76 being their latest released product and Diablo Immortal? Well, that's Activision Blizzard. I don't see a reason why anybody would jump into Elder Scrolls Legends nowadays. Moving on, we have the Eldritch Zookeeper, which is coming soon. And this looks like a cool game, but you know what? If it doesn't have a release date, it shouldn't be on the fall list. It just says soon. Moving on. Soon could be never. Very easily. And here we have a game that's either going to load or not going to load. I thought for a second there it was just not going to load. You're a fox in a cyberpunk city full of hostile robots. Well, that sounds unique. 50% positive, though, this game is. So let's look at the reviews and see if we can remove it. I think... Let's see. I really wanted to recommend this video. Love the setting, the music, the colors, and most of all foxes. However, the game doesn't even contain 1 hour of gameplay, even with exploring and controls are wonky. Same for objects, walls, and collision. The game glitches out and just doesn't feel finished or even polished. Be prepared for weird, bad English instructions. So that sounds like an extremely low effort game. And yeah, that sucks. Yeah, Plug-in Digital, I believe, is a publisher of like Chinese games. I guess that's probably where all this weirdness comes from too, is that somebody had some art assets. They had art assets of a fox, they had art assets of cyberpunk world, and art assets of robots. Let's see. So, yeah. A weird idea alone is not good enough. Yeah, Plug-in Digital as a publisher has a lot of games they've published, which really doesn't mean anything. But I can say that none of these are recognizable at all. Like, they're top games here that they're pointing out. It's just unrecognizable. So, moving forward, we have the Endless Mission, which is not out yet. A community-driven sandbox game where you play, match up, and mod iconic game genres. Why would that even be on the fall list? Like, talk about an overly ambitious pitch. We're not making a game, we're making a sandbox, and then we're going to make the players make a game using what is effectively just either the Unreal or the Unity engine built into our own game that's just been slightly dumbed down. Super, super over ambitious. And frankly, not a game that I can fairly criticize, because all I can say is, okay, you've made a sandbox, but you don't deserve any of the credit for any of the actual game in this game, because you didn't make any of that. You had the community make all of that. Next we have a point-and-click adventure game called The Enigma Machine. This one's 94% at 19 user reviews. So I think even though it is one short of 20, even if it got one more negative review, it still would be very positive. So this one can be added to the wish list. Cyberpunk puzzle atmospheric game. Yeah, don't really need to go any further unless I'm just double checking that this game is a finished product. It's not super long. Moving on. Next we have the Experiment Escape Room. Is this a VR required game? Nope. Can be played solo, yes. Virtuality VR is not necessary. Let's see. So we're starting to see a list of escape room games like this that are in VR, and a lot of them don't require VR. I'm totally willing to play this, and I kind of hope this is where the escape room genre goes a little bit, because up until this point it's been cell phone games with very poor animation and no real story or connection to what's happening. So now that people think they can make some more money out of this, which they probably can't, we'll see more polish on the escape room genre. We'll still probably see a lot of flat to the animation escape room games coming out on cell phones. And we'll probably see a lot of assets that just get reused over and over again. But this one looks good. I can definitely see myself setting my to eventually do a series of just escape room games. Like, honestly, that's probably going to be the new fad after Battle Royale, although probably nowhere as popular as Battle Royale or Fortnite games. Next we have the Gallery Episode 1 called The Starseed. This is a VR only game, so that's why it's staying on the fall list. One of these days, the VR parts will, well, no, if I ever do get VR headsets, I want to have a good collection on the fall list of games to consider. But, you know, paying another $10 even for a game is really, really hard when you've paid $400 to $600 for a VR headset, and that doesn't even include the high-powered computer you would need to run the VR headset. The Gallery Episode 2, Heart of Emberstone. Is that the end of the series? Or are they planning on making a third episode? What is Springboard VR? Apparently some arcades have VR headsets too. Interesting. Well, these look good. They're rated positively. That's all I really need to... I don't even need to do that because I can't do anything with it. Next, we have a game called The Great Sea, which is another VR game that's positive. These were games I should have filtered out. Yeah. I don't need to look at these games. It's a waste of time. They would be on the wish list if I had a VR headset, but because I don't, they're getting treated differently, and that's not my fault per se. It's my fault. I don't own a VR headset, but it's the game maker's fault for focusing on too small of an audience and not being accessible. Next we have The Great Story of a Mighty Hero, which doesn't have enough reviews, so I can't make a decision there. The Haunted Island Frog Detective game. So I was not sure that this game wasn't just a troll game trying to do like Pepe memes or something, but I guess it isn't. It seems like it is just kind of a kid-friendly game. So yeah, it looks good. People like it. I don't think you'd get 96% positive of 144 if it was just a joke troll game. So I'll put that on the wish list. This one's not out yet, the Hong Kong Massacre. I'm not even sure why this would have been... I must have been being really generous to put this on the fall list, because top-down twin-stick shooter games are definitely not my style. Moving on. The Horologists doesn't have enough reviews. Move forward then. The Inner Friend. Adventure, indie, casual, psychological horror from Playmind. I recognize Playmind. Now this is just Metroid. So that's not what the game is. This is a trailer. Yeah, so this is like you're chasing after yourself and being chased. Psychological horror game that I would have put this on the wish list originally. I just wanted to see if enough people liked it, and they did. So that can be promoted. Moving on. We have The Kite. Small point and click adventure game that's free. I think this game is one of many from this developer that always have like this kind of dark turn to them, where it's like an unhappy housewife, a drunkard father, just miserable storytelling. Let's see. Yeah, this game highlights the problems of an unsuccessful family. So yeah, it probably wouldn't be exactly what you call fun, but not all video games have to be fun. They're a form of art. Sometimes art is not fun. Seriously, you're gonna make me log in again, game. this and see. Oops, sorry. Maybe this game is not available on Steam anymore, or maybe Steam is just having trouble. There you go. I guess I might have been a little bit iffy on this, but and I still probably would never cover a free game when I have so many paid games, because if somebody wants to check this out, they can do it. Like, there's no barrier to entry there, just download it and play it. Let's see, next we have the Lab, which I have tagged the following because it was a free game that requires VR from Valve. So, Lab is already in my inventory. I just have it tagged following, so in case I ever get VR, this would probably be the first thing you'd want to play unless Valve releases some other demo software, which is all this really is just a demo software for the continued development of the HTC Vive, which is, I believe, the one that they own and work with. Here we have the Campfire from Hello Games. This looks good and all, but I don't see a reason why. Like, I clearly made a mistake by putting games that aren't already out on the following list, and now I'm cleaning that up. So yeah, when this comes out, if this actually does come out in 2019, it may very well go to the wish list or the fall list. It's not really a consideration of quality, it's just a consideration of, do I want the fall list to be extremely long, which it frankly is. The fact that I had to come back in basically 30 days after doing the Steam wish list to clean up the fall list tells me I probably will have to come back at least every 90 days, if not every 30 days, to clean up the fall list again, because I'm constantly, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, adding more games to it to consider. So it may just be a constant process. It probably will be. I was hoping I could do it maybe once a year, but I'm not sure I can push it off that much without ending up with a really, really long series of videos. This looks good, it's just nobody's played it because it's not available to be installed. Interesting. This game has no release date listed. It has no way to buy it. It feels like the game was put on Steam and then taken down from Steam, but not taken down from Steam because Steam took it down, but just taken down from Steam because something else. There's a game called The Lost Crown. There's a game called The Lost Crown Midnight Horror. So what was I just looking at? The Lost Crown Black and Rock. Yeah, this one's just not there. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe. What should you do about something like this? This will either stay on the following list forever, or I take it off the follow list. I guess I just leave it on the follow list for now. We'll see what happens. Apparently the other two games are on the wish list, or I already own them. Next we have The Last Dead End. 71% positive for an action violent horror adventure game. It looks a little different. It looks like you're not just shooting the standard zombies all over the place. It looks like AA or single A quality game by today's standards. These are some pretty old 3D graphics, but I think that's livable, so we'll put it on the wish list. In all fairness, though, this is also a game that would not be high on my priorities to actually purchase. Let's keep going forward. Let's see, The Last Train doesn't have enough reviews. And nothing wants to load. I guess this is the downside of, what did that say? Funded with Indiegogo. I forgot about Indiegogo. The downside of suspending tabs and saving RAM is that you don't have images already loaded. Yeah, this is a train simulation game where you're trying to get more items and keep your people alive and healthy. It needs more reviews, but then it might be worth playing. Next we have an early access game called The Light Keeps Us Safe, which is probably not too different from the Blackout Club, honestly. Might be a little bit different. This one is kind of a hyped up game, but I'm waiting for it to come out of early access before I put it on the wish list. I'm not even sure, honestly, if it's a single player game. It's a single player only game. There's a lot of games that on first look feel like, oh, this has to be a multiplayer game. And there's so much focus on making multiplayer games that I assume a lot of times. Next we have the Lord of the Rings, the living card game, which looks a lot like Hearthstone and all the other collectible card games. I think that there's definitely some problems with trying to make a game based on even a world as rich as the Tolkien world is, compared to Hearthstone and World of Warcraft lore, because in Hearthstone they can afford to hire writers and change storyline or add new characters instantaneously, whereas Lord of the Rings, if you try to add anything, the Tolkien estate might have a say in that, and that probably isn't gonna be as good. Also, I don't think as many people care about the Tolkien world as Hearthstone, or maybe more people do care about the Tolkien world, but you can play Hearthstone and not care about World of Warcraft. Like, I personally have never played World of Warcraft. I don't care anything about the storyline, but the game has just got that head start and it's better. Undoubtedly, people are liking it in its early access form, but I'm just following this game because I'm following it. I'm not gonna move over to it. Like, Artifact was really the only game that had a chance to pull me away from Hearthstone. Maybe Magic the Gathering Arena could pull me away when it comes out of beta, but I doubt it. This game doesn't have enough reviews, so I can't consider it yet. This game doesn't have enough reviews, so I can't consider it yet. Although this does have some weird looking pale 3D animation style. Next we have another game that just doesn't have enough reviews. This came out in February of 2018, so the odds of it getting 20 reviews by February 2019 is pretty low. Let's see, it's a probably Chinese game, if I was to guess. Might be a Japanese game, but this isn't your typical Japanese style of animation. I guess I leave this. Let's just stick to the rules. I could preemptively remove this from the following list, but I'll just leave it until February. 2 more months this game has until to get 17 reviews or more. Otherwise, I'm gonna just consider it. And if I consider it, I have a good chance I'm not gonna keep it on the wish list. There's plenty of other adventure games out there already on the wish list. This game doesn't have enough reviews or any reviews, so can't consider that. And I really did drop the ball. This game doesn't have enough reviews, so I can't consider it. This is a weird thumbnail for a game that looks like it's Minecraft. Let's see, the Pedestrian isn't out yet. I totally want to play this game, but it's just, it doesn't need to be on the fall list. It's a puzzle game where you're the man on the signs, and so you're working your way through locations and puzzles. Yeah, it's a cool idea, at least by the looks of it, but it's not out yet. This came out in June, and it's got 17 reviews. I suppose we'll follow the rules again and just leave this on the fall list, because if I have to decide right now, I'm going to remove it from the fall list, and I'm trying to bend over backwards to keep not miss anything that is good quality or even potentially good quality. Like, piano might be good. It might get 10 more reviews that are positive, and then that would work, and that would be wishlistable. Here, this game is still in early access, so until it comes out of early access, it stays on the fall list. This game is not out yet, so it shouldn't be on the fall list. First person atmospheric puzzle exploratory game. This could be anything and everything. Like, this might just be a low effort asset flip game. This might be amazingly good. This might be nothing. Might be 5 minutes of gameplay. You just don't know. Moving on, we have the Royal Game of which I'm hoping people will review this. In all honesty, if it gets to November 2019 and people still haven't reviewed it, I have a decent chance that I would put this on the wish list anyways. It's a ancient game, 3,000 years ago, popular board game around the world. So I've never played it. It looks interesting. So yeah, that sounds cool. But for now, we'll wait. Here we have another game that is early access and has no reviews, so can't do anything there. Alright, the Shapeshifting Detective. So the Shapeshifting Detective is a full motion video detective game where you change what you look like to everybody else. It is definitely something I want to play, and I probably saw it on November 6th, so it probably just didn't have any reviews, and that's why. And they added a new feature where you can skip scenes, which probably would be helpful on a second playthrough. So yeah, that gets it to the wish list. Next we have Sky Climber. Why was I putting this on the fall list? Like, this kind of looks like garbage. I must have just randomly clicked on this, or perhaps I was thinking, oh, it would be nice to have something like a attempt at a new Donkey Kong game, because that kind of is what this looks like. But nah, this is garbage. we could probably look at the reviews and see that most people, well, I guess it is getting some positive reviews. The problem with this game, though, is it's an arcadey style game, and that just doesn't work for video game criticism, and it's not something, the style of games most people play anyways. So yeah, I can remove that easily. The Slaughter Act 1 is very positive. Is the Slaughter Act 2 out? Is the question. Because if Act 2 isn't out, then regardless of whether you're selling the game separately or not, this is an unfinished game. The Act 1 is from 2016, January 28th, 2016. Yeah. And this developer made a game for $15 called Space 2D after that. And the Orbit HD before that. So, yeah, this is an unfinished product. So it needs to just be removed from the following list. I have no reason to frustrate my audience or frustrate myself by playing a game that's never going to be finished. And 2 years with no announcement, nearly 3 years at this point with no announcement or release on a game that is this simplistic. Like, the only justifiable way in my mind that you could even release something called the Slaughter Act 1 that looks like this is if you had already made the Slaughter Act 2 and was planning on releasing it a month later. And I don't even know why you would do that. Why not just have a finished product? So yeah, that's gone. We're slowly getting there. The Stillness in the Wind has no release date. It's available when the goats are ready, it says, so that shouldn't be on the follow list. Like, I have no reason to follow games that don't even have it together enough to know a general idea of when they're coming out. Like, just pick a date. That's all it takes. Doesn't have to be accurate, doesn't have to be true. Just pick a date and put it in there. Of course, people will yell at you if you don't make that date, but you've got to commit in business. This is a game that I'm just waiting to see if anybody's going to play it and give some reviews. It's probably not going to have anybody ever play it. So we'll see again at September 29, 2019. See if anybody went for this. This is probably just an asset flip game. I don't even remember what it was about this game that had caught my attention. Maybe it's the name. But I guess I'll just follow the rules, you know. September 2019, I'll consider this game, or at some point past September 2019, I'll probably consider the game and then remove it at that point. Let's see. This one doesn't have enough reviews. It's 94% positive at 14 user reviews, but I feel like that could shift if you got 6 negative reviews, and I couldn't really do the calculation there. So yeah, this one's not ready for consideration. Next we have the Technician, which is early access, so no issue there. I think this is a kind of electronics game, and I'm always kind of looking for a good and accurate electronics game, just most of them are not. Let's see. Next we have Trials of Olympus, which is a match 3 game that came out. So I very recently added this to the follow list. Of course it doesn't have any reviews, so it just stays on the follow list. Let's see. Uncertain Last Quiet Days It's mixed in the last 30 days, mostly positive overall. Story-driven adventure game in a post-apocalyptic world. Experience the mysterious vibe of each carefully explored locations. Is this a walking simulator game for the most part? No, it looks like it's been more of an adventure game. Let's see. Trying to see. They removed the word episode from the description. There's a reason for that. Let's see. We gave up on the idea of episodes. More specifically, we gave up on it a while ago. Let's see. The new description just dots its I's and crosses the T's. When we started developing our very first game, we planned on making it episodic. First game first, continued story in episode 2, and grand finale in episode 3. However, the highlights shifted over the course of the works. There are 3 reasons why the light at the end became the second story of the uncertain rather than episode 2. Let's see. It's not a sequel. Part 1 is a narrative about a world without people and lonely robot explorer. Part 2, albeit connected with the storyline to Part 1, is completely in itself non-linear. So I'm not sure if that is enough of an information there to say this is an unfinished game, other than they're redefining their game as a finished product instead of an episodic product. So I don't know how people are gonna feel about that, but it seems like people are happy enough. This is such an old game. It was on Steam Greenlight. Let's see what the reviews say, the negative ones. I feel a little cheated. I grabbed this game in sale. I enjoyed playing it. Then it ends in the middle of an action sequence. I thought I purchased the complete game. Come to find it's been 2 years and still no second episode. I don't recall this being made very clear when I purchased it, and this was December 15th. Steam should clearly state it's episode 1 and episode 2 not yet available. I don't hold out much hope for episode 2 after 2 years. Alright, so that's exactly what I needed to hear. They're pulling shenanigans here, and people were happy with the game when it was sold as episode 1 as an unfinished project, and then they changed the name to trick people into buying it, and now people are not satisfied with what they bought because you misrepresented your product. And that kind of shenanigans is anti-consumerist, it's anti-video game player. So speaking of somewhat anti-video game player, G2A, there's no reason to reward this company and buy their product and review their product. No reason at all. This one goes off the follow list. And that means that this game also, which was supposed to be episode 2 but wasn't even continuing the story by their own admission, is going off the following list. And see, this looks really nicely animated, but you've started your whole business on a bed of lies, and I don't know how you turn that around. Basically what I think you would need to do is this developer needs to disband or change its name, start over with a new project that is in no way connected to the previous projects. Disbanding is probably what they need to do, because if they just change their name, then in modern time people would be able to figure that out pretty easily. You need to do your very best to bury the fact that you pulled these kind of shenanigans. And see, I don't even know if I'm looking at something that's animated right now, or if I'm looking at something that's live action that's been rotoscoped. I this looks like live action footage that's just been rotoscoped, which that too is more shenanigans, because almost certainly the game is not going to look like that. Yeah, that last part of that shows that that was just a live action actor put on top of a 3D animated thing. Look how terrible this quality image is. Can't even upload a high quality image into your screenshots. So moving on, I don't need to get into a rant, but that is certainly unacceptable in my book. We're close to being done with tea, which means we might be close to being done with the whole list. I'm going to take a break and drink some water though. Next we have the Universe Sim, which is still early access, so I don't really have to consider it. I could probably consider it right now and say this is not the type of game for me, but you know what, we'll just wait. I don't need to spend mental energy deciding on games that haven't met the limits. Here we have a game called The Rusty Pup that doesn't have enough reviews, so that's not for consideration either. Here we have the VR Museum of Fine Art. Like, I've seen several of these types of games that try to be like cool and educational and such. A lot of times they're not great. This one looks pretty good, although I'm not sure if they're really getting all the copyrights for some of these art things, which is sad to say. Some of these might actually be copywritten. 3D models of famous art. The idea is really good though. So once it's free too. Once, if I were ever to get a VR headset, this would be like one of the first things I would get. And if every school had VR, one VR headset or a bunch of VR headsets in a computer lab of some sort, like, this would make a lot more sense. It's probably a lot easier and cheaper to have kids put on VR headsets and go to a museum virtually than having them go to a real world museum. Let's see, moving on. We have the Watchmaker. There's several games like this style of game that have come out, and unfortunately several of them were not good quality, even though I really wanted them to be good quality. A good puzzle game with gear mechanics reminds me of one of my favorite games, Myst. So I'm happy to see that this one is 75%, 76% of 21 user reviews. That's not amazingly great reviews, but it's good enough for me. So unless there's something hidden in the description where it's not finished, which I don't see anything like that, this can go to the wish list. Feels like it's been a while since we put anything on the wish list, mostly because a lot of them just can't be evaluated yet. A Wild 8 is an early access game. It probably isn't going to make it to my wish list anyways, but until it comes out of early access, I'm not going to even consider it. Next we have Thea 2 The Shattering, which I want to see what this is before I move on. It's early access again, so looks like it's a hex-based strategy RPG of some sort, if I look at the tags. This really seems like it's all over the place as far as gameplay mechanics. Yeah, it seems like it's got some card gameplay. It seems like it's got some inventory management. Looks like it's got skill trees. This game is just all over the place. I don't even know how you would play a game like this. I guess the main gameplay mechanic does take place with the cards. Alright, well, if this comes out of early access, I might consider it, and probably should look at some point to see where if Thea 1 is playable. Next we have Them and Us, which looks like it's probably very closely trying to copy the art style of The Last of Us. Even the name is close to The Last of Us. This looks exactly like Ellie from the back. It's 71% of 21 users, and it's early access, so I guess I don't need to consider it. Yeah, this game is probably on my falling list just because it's a Last of Us clone. That doesn't inherently mean I won't play it though, because heck, when it comes to games that come out exclusively for the PlayStation, or, well, there's even a few that come exclusively to the Xbox, but it's very few. And then basically a lot of games come out exclusively for Nintendo consoles. So PC players, best we can do is find clones, and a Last of Us clone game would be nice. Now, actually, this doesn't really look like it plays like Last of Us. It looks more like it's just an adventure puzzle game, which could be fine in its own right. Nothing here looks bad. Maybe at some point zombies will arise and you'll have to shoot them, yeah. This doesn't look terrible. It very possibly is going to get sued though. Next we have Them's Fighting Herds, which is a My Little Pony fighting game that as soon as it comes out of early access, if I am going to do a fighting game series, this is the kind of weird, silly fighting game series I would want to use as a counterpoint. But it's still in early access, so until then. Otherwise, it's rated very positively. So maybe it won't ever come out of early access. Let's see, moving on. Interesting. Next we have Thief of Thieves Season 1. And so we are waiting here to see if there is a Season 2 on this game. If they did all of Season 1 and people were happy with Season 1 and then they came back and changed their name and said, well, this is all of the game, at that point I might have a different reaction than the other game. There's a big difference from doing 4 chapters, which is 4 volumes, or what they say they've created, and versus doing 1 episode and then ending on a cliffhanger. So it really just depends on if Season 1 didn't end on a cliffhanger and it wraps up relatively well, I would be willing to consider to play this game if they don't make a Season 2. But that is certainly the question. Will there be a Season 2, or did they finish it? Let's see. Is there anything else to say about this game right now, though? No. Like, this is based off a comic book series that maybe is famous, but I don't know if it really is. I've never heard of Thief of Thieves as a comic book series. Moving on. Next we have Thief Simulator. Become the best thief, gather intel, and steal things and sell them to buy high-tech equipment. Do everything a real thief does. See, this personally might be a rather interesting game. Or it might be terrible. So the question is this a early access game? Apparently also Car Mechanic Simulator. It's made by the same developer. It doesn't require VR. I don't think it uses VR. This is boring, repetitive, can't even kill people. Police appear in 1 second and arrest you. Let's see. Let's see, I'm reading the reviews. Here, I should read them out loud. Its meta requires a lot in regards to optimization, especially in the rich district. Some significant changes to the sneaking system. Not a bad game at all, however I decided to refund due to the following reasons. After now it feels really repetitive. Yeah, I guess that's why this one never caught on, because I could certainly see streamers playing this game all the time, like they did Hello Neighbor, and that's all Hello Neighbor really was spying on your neighbors and breaking into their house, whether there was a reason to or not. Like, there was a TV show that aired for many years called To Catch a Thief in the United States that I love to watch, that taught about home security while breaking into people's houses and then fixing their houses. It was people who agreed to have their houses broken into, so it was staged break-ins. It's a shame. I kind of would like to see a good version of this, but it seems in the reviews it's pretty obvious that it's not really that good. But do I bow to the audience, because there's 80% of 1,521 people did find it interesting. So usually I would just listen to the negative reviews, but honestly in this case, since it made it to the fall list, I think I have to listen to the crowd and the mob, and the mob is saying it's very positive. So alright, it goes to the wish list. That doesn't mean I'm gonna buy it, but I think it deserves a chance. I was a little flippant on there. Next we have another game that's not out yet, so this can be removed. A horror game of sorts. Might be good, might be bad, you never really know until it comes out and people actually play it. T is always the longest list of games. Let's see. Here we have a game that has only one review. And to speed this up, I'm gonna have to stop waiting for images and videos to load, because I'm just looking at the game to kind of remind myself what the game is, but it doesn't matter. It has only one review. It came out just a couple months ago. I can't really evaluate it yet. So Thunder Kid, Doesn't have enough reviews. Moving on then. Ticket to Earth has 22 reviews positive. An indie strategy puzzle game. I think this deserves to be on the wish list then. Let me just get a general idea of what it is. Looks like it's a strategy placement game. Yeah, I remember this. So you move on certain tiles in a row, which beef up either attacks or heals or defense, and that changes how the attack is going to happen. So there's strategy in how you move on top of the actions you choose. So that made it to the wish list. 10 Hearts is an early access game, so I can't consider it yet. Tiny Bubbles doesn't have enough reviews, but 5 more positive reviews, or if it comes around in May, I'll probably put this on the wish list. But if it can't even get 20 reviews, how relevant is a game really? This is part of the problem of so many games coming out on Steam, is that people aren't even randomly seeing and reviewing games. Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove comes out March 1st, 2019. We don't need that on the following list until it comes out. But almost certainly, I think I own the other Toe Jam and Earl games, so it would make a lot of sense to buy this and play them all. Tom Clancy's The Division. Easy enough to remove this one. Like, I need to be realistic here. It says there's single player, but it really kind of isn't. The Division 2 is coming out pretty soon. Even at $7.49, that's still probably not worth it. So I'm just gonna remove this. It's just not the kind of game for me. Yeah, you're really not gonna miss anything at this point. Not playing the Division 1. You probably aren't gonna miss anything not playing the Division 2, which I can remove that from the following list because it's not out yet. Now, I have a lot of Tom Clancy games on the wish list, and I'm thinking about playing some of those, but there is a very high percentage chance that I won't play any of them, because none of them really are the kind of games I would want to play. This game, Tombo, doesn't have enough reviews, and so nothing there. Toho Kinsho Reloaded. Why am I on this? Duplicate tab prevented. Alright. Indie faith-based roguelike RPG with anime style. Well, this is overwhelmingly positive. So if you ever wondered why there are so many anime games out there, is that they're extremely popular to some people. And like 530 reviews for something that came out October 25th. It's a RPG. I'm not sure if this would be one of the RPGs I should cover, but there's really no reason why I should discriminate against it either. So off it goes to the wish list amongst all the other RPGs. Let's see, Tower Hunter Ezra's Trial. Let's see, this is early access, so until it comes out of early access, again mostly positive. Moving on. Tower Keepers is overall mixed with 68% of 58 user reviews, but mostly positive of 12 user reviews in the last 30 days. Which that doesn't really work too well in general. That just tells me that not too many people are playing the game in general. This is a free-to-play game, Tower Keepers. Does it have in-app purchases? Yes, it does. For that reason alone, it's getting removed. Yeah, there's nothing here that is so unique that I would miss not playing it. Let's see, Tracks, the toy train game, set game, is very positive, but still early access. I'm waiting for it to come out. I think this would be a really cool game for particularly young kids that are into these wooden toy trains sets. Like, I don't know if a 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old would still be into this unless they just are really obsessed about it. But this game certainly seems to give you a lot of opportunity to play that kind of game in a virtual world where you have infinite amount of space, which is often a problem for big building toys, is kids don't have enough floor space to play. Trail Breaking doesn't have enough reviews, so we don't need to consider that. Trains VR, another Trains game. There's a couple here to consider. If you have VR, Trains VR might be better than Tracks, but then you have to have VR. Unless you can play it without VR. And I don't think you can. Which kind of sucks. Next we have a game called Transpose, which doesn't have enough reviews and is VR anyways. So we can't consider that. Here we have Trials Rising, which is both on the wish list, which I don't think it should be, and on the fall list when it's not even out yet. So honestly, it shouldn't be on either one of these lists. I'm still not 100% sold that I want to play any of the Trials games. But yeah, until it comes out, I can't even make a decision whether I'd want it on the fall list, can I? Here we have one that has only one review, and it's allegedly coming out January 1st, 2019. But you can buy it right now, and today is not January 1st, 2019. Interesting that you can set your release date ahead of the day you actually release it. This did not come out January 1st. This came out several days ago. I remember when this came out. Like, amazing. It's amazing how much a developer can rely on the Steam store pages, and like, there's no checks, there's no balances, there's no verification of information. Next we have Trinity VR, another VR game with not enough reviews, but it looks kind of cool, so it might be a good game. But then it would still just be a VR game. Is this page gonna load? Next we have Tropico 6, which comes out January 25th. So I don't really need to follow these. I'm gonna have to retrain myself to not click the follow button on games that aren't actually out, even if they are games that are big AAA games. Next we have a hidden object game called True Fear that looks a lot like it might be trying to make it seem like it's associated with the Fear first-person shooter game, but it's a hidden object game. It's part 1. So part 2. Well, after almost 5 years of development, True Fear series part 2 is finally here. Thank you for your support and patience. We're starting work on part 3. Making sure not to repeat the same fiasco. Let us know how you like, what you liked and disliked about the game. Okay, this is a 2016 game. This announcement was November 2nd that part 2 is out. And this is just ridiculous. Yeah. This I can't go down that path. I can't follow a hidden object game for what could be another 5 years. That would be ridiculous. So, True Fear for Forsaken Souls Part 2 also getting removed. There's so many horror games, hidden object horror games out there. I do like the idea of a series, certainly more than just random hidden object games, but I don't think I'll be playing really any hidden object games. So, yeah, both of those are removed from the fall list. If 5 years down the line it comes back and the series is done and it's still super popular and I find it, then I might go back and play it then. But man, 5 years is a long time to be planning ahead. Here we have a point-and-click adventure that's actually a point-and-click adventure, not just a hidden object game, that looked very, very exciting in its animation style and its cartoony flow. The only thing I guess is I probably added this November 7th, and it's from the creator of Tormentum, which I didn't really like how Tormentum played, and Tormentum was animated a completely different way, but I'm not going to let that dissuade me. There's 97% positivity here. This goes to the wish list, absolutely. Yeah, we're closer to the end. We may not actually be anywhere close to the end, though. Next, we have a game called Tunic that doesn't have any reviews and can't be purchased. This is just there seems to be quite a lot of these games like this where they take them off of sale. I don't know why they do it that way, or why Steam lets them do it that way. I guess Steam would rather have a page, even if you can't buy the game, than have nothing. Kind of in the same way that Netflix lets you search for things that it doesn't even have available for streaming. And then will recommend you things somewhat close to that. Here we have another early access game with not enough reviews. Let's see, 30 positive reviews in VR. Twilight Path looks cool, but requires VR. I'm really crossing my fingers a lot of these VR games stop requiring VR eventually, and then I could play them on just a regular PC. Next we have Twinfold, which is a 2048 style of game with a bit of a twist because there's walls there. It doesn't have enough reviews though, so we'll ignore that. We have another early access game with not enough reviews, so we can't do anything there. Yeah, I totally dropped the ball. I thought I had gone through all of these and made sure only games that had at least 20 reviews and were out of early access. I must have stopped at some point or skipped over quite a few at some point. Does this require VR or use VR? No. Well, this has 20 reviews, 75% positive. That can go to the wish list. Tyler Model 05. Looks like it's a kind of cool game. Tire Chains of Valhalla doesn't have enough reviews though, so can't do anything with that one. Hey, and we're past T and we're at U, undelivered. Doesn't have a release date. This is a cool game. I recall seeing it where you're gonna deliver letters to continue like a interactive fiction. Slightly interesting idea. Hopefully it actually comes out. Unending Dusk is early access. Game? What kind of game is this? I don't remember this one. A beat 'em up in a post-apocalyptic world. Okay. Looks pretty old school 16-bit pixel animation there, but maybe in motion that would be an acceptable animation style. So I'll leave it for now since it's early access. Here we have Unknown Fate. It doesn't have enough reviews. This looks cool. It says it's VR, but it doesn't seem like it requires VR. Let's see. Designed for VR or PC alike. Yep. So you can play it without VR. Just needs a few more reviews. Uno. Yeah. I really would like a good Uno game. Uno was on sale. Is on sale right now. Still pretty expensive. Unfortunately, it seems like everybody hates it and it's only getting worse. So, yeah. It's a shame. They probably need to pull this Uno off the storefront. Ubisoft just needs to pull it off Steam and not sell it for 6 months and then come out with a new version that is probably exactly the same but just slightly improved upon. Or you know what, you come out with Uno Deluxe and then you pull this one off being available for purchase. That's what you could do. Is, yeah, make a game called Uno Deluxe. Simple solution there. Make it better. Don't do whatever you did that made half of the people hate such a simplistic game. And of course, if I really needed to play Uno, I could just buy Tabletop Simulator and play it that way. Here we have just a demo for a game that's not out, so I can't do anything with that. Unto the End doesn't have a release date, so it should go off the following list. And yeah, a lot of these games are not big name titles, so I might miss them, but then they might also not come out, so what can you really say or do about that? I just need to keep the fall list, I need to keep the wish list, I need to keep all the lists as clean and concise as possible, and filling it with games that may never be released is not helpful. This game doesn't have enough reviews. It feels like it's a Chinese game, if I was to guess, but it's probably a Japanese game. Oh. Let's see. Yeah, I have no idea what this is though, until I get some more reviews. We have another card game with not enough reviews. This one is not backed by any like big company or any based on any majorly known world, so this one in particular doesn't matter. Like, this is not going to blow the world up as amazingly good, but I'll leave it until it gets 20 reviews. Just trying to stick to the rules. What is this, a hidden object game? No, it says it's an RPG, but it's not out yet. Moving forward. Vampire, 65% positive in the last 30 days, 71% positive. This is a game that honestly isn't great, and it's probably never going to be great. I know that It has been a new difficulty mode added. This is from Don't Nod, which is the developers of Life is Strange. It kind of has some relevancy because of that. So I'll put it on the wish list. Maybe I never get around to actually buying it, but I am knowing that I'm going to end up playing a mediocre game at best when I play this. Unless they manage to patch in something more to it to make it a better game. It has a lot of the Order 1666 vibe, I think is the name of the game. It's the Order and then some year, where that game was really cool looking in the trailers, but very short and not very good in reality. Next we have this game Vandals, a sneak and paint puzzle game. When this game came out, I wasn't really hot into these styles of Hitman Go style of games where you're trying to avoid being detected. I think I've kind of cooled off on that idea at this point, so I would be willing to put this on the wish list, but I just recognized it doesn't have enough reviews yet. Let's see, Vanguards is mixed at 90. The reason why this is on the wish list though is it's a free-to-play game from a student project from Brigham Young University. So I'll put this on the wish list and hopefully remember that it's a student game, and that's why it's on the wish list. It's because I want to always try and cover these student projects and just show how usually when it is a student project that gets released by a college, the project is actually really good and the game is really good. It's odd then that there are so many bad games that look like they're from first year computer programmers on Steam. I imagine it's because there's a bunch of people trying to teach themselves to computer program, or they literally are first year computer programmers and are turning in projects that would have been expected to be done in a week or so, instead of turning in projects that should have taken 6 months to 4 years to develop. Venture Kid looks kind of cool as an old NES style game. Flows nicely. I might be willing to play a game like this. I'm not super into the idea of playing old Nintendo looking games, but if this gets 10 more reviews, of course I shouldn't be looking at them at all. I'm really just repeating myself if I say, well, I might play this game if it gets more reviews. That's what I said when I put it on the following list in the first place. This is a weird swing yourself from point to point with a bunch of assets flying around. But it's rated positively. Does it require VR? No. Nope, it doesn't, so this is one of those games that it's probably going to be way too expensive for the foreseeable future for what it is. Like, this is probably a 50-cent game, not a $11.24 game. We have Vestige, which doesn't have enough reviews and requires VR. We have Visage, which is early access, but very positive, so if it comes out of early access, I'll put it on the wish list. We have Vivette, which is a dark game of some sort. It's rated positive. Is this early access? It doesn't look like it. It came to the Switch. A lot of these small-time games are going to the Switch eShops. I'm looking to see if there's anything indicating that this is an unfinished project. And see, this might be an RPG Maker game, but I don't think it is. It certainly looks like one. But that doesn't. It probably isn't. Yeah, this is iffy, but it's positive, so I'll put it on the wish list. Like, maybe it's an RPG Maker game with a horror story around it. Maybe it's worth playing after all. See, generally speaking, I just don't like these 16-bit art styles, these pixel-y art styles, 8-bit art styles, whatever you call it. Anything that looks like it was on an NES or Super NES, it's just, it's 2018, it's nearly 2019. We don't need games that look like they came out in the 1980s. Here we have another game that's not out yet, so we can remove that from the following. Oops, what did I just do? Oh, I hit the wrong button. There we go. I hit Alt-Tab instead of Control-Tab. And Windows 10 has changed how that looks. We have this game that doesn't have enough reviews. So we skip forward. We have this game that's in early access. We have VR Room, which doesn't have enough reviews on this VR. See, we gotta be pretty close here. Walker Man tags sexual content, nudity, gore. 20 positive reviews. Okay. That's from Recognizable Sekai Project. We'll put this on the wish list and move forward so YouTube doesn't yell at me for showing something that I shouldn't show, according to them. Next we have a game that's early access and doesn't have enough reviews. Still looking for a good like fighting robot game, a good mech fighting game. This also might be a good example of like the Taekwondo game we saw a lot earlier in this stream, where something like that might work well if it comes out of early access and actually does play well. Problem with getting into fighting games though is you have to be really good at animating and making fighting games, because people will complain if it's not 100% perfect or the way they want it. This game is early access with not enough reviews. Let's see. This game doesn't have enough reviews, so we don't need to wait for the images to load. This game doesn't have enough reviews, so we didn't need to wait there. 1 W, so we should be close to being done. This one's not out yet, so that one can be removed. This one's a VR game, so it stays on the following list. Why I didn't clean this up better, I don't know. I must have gotten busy. This one's early access, so can't make a decision yet. Honestly, I probably could make a decision on some of these early access games if I wanted to, but I'm trying to give these games as much of a chance as possible. This one's early access too, so no consideration. Let's see. This one doesn't have enough reviews. I think this one I just added like a couple days ago, and it's close to having enough reviews. Sometimes games get people's attentions a lot faster than others. Let's see, 52, but in VR, so it stays on the fall list. This one's early access, but positive. Winds of Change. So your story-heavy adventure game. Oh, it's a furry game where you play as animals, alright. When it comes out of early access. This one doesn't have enough reviews. All these games are cool, But man, Steam just doesn't want to load the images. Steam slows me down whenever I do these type of projects. They don't expect you to spend that much bandwidth loading so many pages. This one doesn't have enough reviews though, so moving forward. And so then everything just gets slowed down to modem speeds. This is VR, but positive. The Witching Tower, VR. Let's see, Wizard of Legend. Well, it seems like this can be put on the wish list. I was, I guess, a little bit iffy on Wizard of Legend, but I'm willing to put it on the wish list. Yeah, people like it, even if it looks like it might be a little bit not my style of gameplay. I think I could, I think it deserves to be looked at, and maybe I could broaden my horizons. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Alright, people are mixed on this, but you've already covered Wolfenstein 1. I'm already committed. I want to play it. Maybe people don't like it. Maybe they do. Whatever. Like, I'm gonna play the other one that's in between it also, the Wolfenstein, the Old Blood, or Wolfenstein: The New Order, whichever one is the one with the zombies in it. And I assume that Wolfenstein is going to come out and have more games in the series. You know, I'd be really surprised if they canceled the already announced sequels. At some point, when I'm done scraping the bottom of the barrel, I'm gonna have to buy this game. I know I am. The problem is that it's just not finished, and the developer Gran went out of business, and then I believe Rebellion bought the rights to it, but Rebellion hasn't done anything with it, so yeah, it could be something that they do, or it couldn't. Could be that it just never gets finished. It's a shame because it's an intriguing visual thing, so at least use the art assets for some new game, some Little Red Riding Hood themed game of some sort. You don't particularly have to continue this story if there's just something terrible with the gameplay or the story here, which there might have been. Unfortunately, that game is just going to forever stay on the follow list until something else happens. Well, I guess this game got enough reviews. Wormster Dash with 30 reviews, 100% positive. A hand-drawn game where you're being chased by a giant worm. So yeah, that can go to the wish list. This game Wrench is intriguing, where you work on cars. I don't know if it's going to be a great game when it comes out of early access or not. See, this video is just showing all the cars being blown up, but that's not really what you do. Is you're working on the deep internals of the engines of the cars. Hey, and we're to the X's, so we can't be too far from the end. Here we go. One tag, anime, sexual content, funny. It's early access. We'll see if this comes out of early access or not. It probably won't. We've got one that's really, really positive, is a space simulation sandbox game for $50. These space games are not my deal though. Just not what I want to play. So this is one of those games where I'm gonna give it its due right now and say X4 Foundations is probably a great game for a 4X style space game. That being said, it's not the kind of game I want to play, and it's definitely not a game that I would want to spend $49 on. So it's removed from the fall list for my own personal taste reasons. Next we have X-Blaze Code Embryo visual novel anime game. It's positive. Now perhaps I should be a little bit more picky on the visual novels, and because I don't know how many I would really cover. They're all going to be rather long and have a lot of either me reading or dialogue happening. So it makes a very different style of gameplay than what you're used to in the Western world, where everything is hyper action and you're running and gunning all the time. So I don't know how I could be more picky there. Having full audio Japanese is good, but it really needs to have full English. Otherwise, I would, as the person playing the game, have to read out all the dialogue. But until I can figure out a way to raise my standards on visual novels, everything that's good should be on there. This is from Arc System Works, which is a recognizable developer. So it's no name animator. Here we have X-Blaze Lost Memories. This one only has 13 positive reviews, but it came out in 2016, so it's not going to get any more positive reviews. And if I was going to do the X-Blaze series, I probably would want to do all of them. So that is that. That's going to the wish list also. Next we have 13 Lost Identity the game, which I think is the idea of that movie Memento. I know there's a game like that where you've totally lost your memory, or you lose your memory every few minutes. I'm not sure if this is the game I'm thinking about though. Let's see. This has, I guess, until March for me to make a decision. There's not a lot of people that have played it. Looks like it's a fine adventure game. Maybe slightly older game because it's not widescreen. Doesn't look incredibly expensive at $1.99. But without enough reviews, I can't really make a decision now. So let's just move forward. And let's see, Exo, Box, Circle, and Cross, which looks like it's probably a tic-tac-toe game in 3D. Yeah, I remember this when it came out. Yeah, no reviews. So I don't even think this game uses VR. I don't know if tic-tac-toe in 3D though is actually something worth thinking about, or if it's just a dumb idea. Alright. Next we have Yakuza Kiwami, which is not out yet, so we can remove that. Next we have a game called Yearning, which doesn't have enough reviews. Another psychological horror, probably RPG Maker game. Well, actually, no, this isn't a top-down RPG looking game. Let's see, we have Yeti Orag, which is 50% positive with 12 user reviews. Now, on YouTube, if a game, on YouTube, if a video was 50% positive, you probably would never get that video recommended again. I'm not sure Steam is particularly that cruel to new games, so maybe July 13th, 2019 rolls around and this game still has 12 reviews and is at 50%, or maybe, just maybe, people will actually play this. I think this game says it's full motion videos, but really it's just still images throughout the game with some animated movement on top of it. Like, I'm not sure that there actually is full motion in it. When they may be misdescribing it, and that might be causing the mixed reviews in parts. Next we have Yeez 13, Lacrimosa of Dana. Let's see, 80% in the last 30 days, 61% in the entirety. So I wonder what the issue was here. I'm definitely considering playing the Yeez series as far as JRPGs if I get around to I get around to playing RPGs. Dragon Quest is probably better than the Yeez series. Let's see if we can see some negative reviews. Let's see. The game is amazing and good and fantastic, but playing a keep crashing game is no fun at all. The game crashed easily and terribly often. Even I tried all the solutions, including the lowest crafting settings. So there's a crashing games. It's a great game, but NISA is trash and uses little monkeys to make all of their ports. Falcom let Xseed release handle Yeez. They actually give a poop. Oh, and by the way, this game still has memory leaks. Let's see. Apparently some people don't have the crash issue, but a lot of people do, and many refunded because of it. Okay, so it seems like it's just a terrible port. I'll just have to try and keep that in mind. Like, it might be patched by the time I get around to playing a game like this. But we certainly in the video game world and PC playing world have seen Japanese developers decide to release things on PC for the first time ever, and that is amazing. It is almost certainly in part because Sony is not treating the Japanese developers as nicely as they used to be treated, and maybe also in part because Nintendo is treating them a little bit better, and Microsoft is even treating Japanese developers a little bit better. And sometimes programmers can do it just fine and make very good PC ports, but a lot of times they just don't do it right. They just don't program on PC, and the PC ports suffer horribly, and it's a shame. But I think maybe the last 30 days might be an indication that maybe they fix some stuff. When you see that there's a 19% jump in positivity, although there's considerably fewer people who are still playing this game, maybe they patched out some of those issues. A lot of Japanese companies put out their games on PC though, and it's just not even ever patched or touched. So, but they're moving in the right direction, I think. Here we have a game that's not out yet, so we can remove that from the following list. Hey, we're at Z's, so we can't be too far. We have a pinball game that's mostly positive. But it's still early access. That's why. Okay. If this comes out of early access, I'm fine with yet another pinball games on Steam. There's already Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX3 now. Let's see. Zenkai Zero Last Beginning is not out yet from Spike Chunsoft. So we can remove that from the following list. Let's see. Zavita is early access. 3D space simulation. I could probably say I'm not going to play this game and remove this from the fall list too. Yeah. I don't need to go any further with that one. Doesn't seem like it wants to leave the fall list. Alright, there we go. Yeah, there's nothing here that would make me want to play this game. And we're at Akihabara Feel the Rhythm again with A, which is interesting because that shouldn't have been there. So maybe I open this and just make sure this is removed from the following list. Okay, so this is the end. It's been a longer journey than I thought. Between 3 videos, we did 7 hours to just clean up the fall list. And that certainly indicates the importance of having the fall list and the wish list as clean as possible and just not full of a bunch of things that don't matter or games that I would never even want to play. Hopefully I don't feel a need to do another one of these video series until the Steam summer sale. Like, that's probably the next sale in which I would spend any money. There might be another Steam sale before then, and Steam flash sales might be coming back. There are rumors of that, but there's always been rumors of that coming back. So if some big sale before the summer sale happens, I feel I would need to do some cleanup videos like this again to make sure the wish list is set right before I started doing any shopping on Steam to decide what actually I want to buy. It's been a long list, and of course every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I'm playing Hearthstone and talking about video game news, and more importantly for this topic, I'm looking at new games that came out on Steam. And if a new game came out on Steam and it meets the requirements to be on the fall list, it goes on the fall list. If it somehow meets the requirements to be on the wish list, it will be on the wish list, which means both lists grow forever. The only way the list gets smaller is when I actually buy games, or when somebody is kind enough to friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list, which is one of the few ways you can support this channel. If you enjoyed this kind of content, you can go back and watch the even longer Steam wishlist cleanup, which I do a much better job about making sure every video is loaded up and you can see all the pictures and you can see every game I'm talking about. At the end of this video, I kind of sped through some of that. That's it for this recording though. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to friend or follow me on a myriad of social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me, you can either support me monthly by Patreon, or like I said, you can friend me on Steam. You could gift me a game you want to see me cover, you could gift me a gift card, or you can gift me a game off the wish list, which is at this point very, very much games I want to play and only games I want to play. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.